It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Yeah, it's Feedback Friday. It's a bit of a bummer of a Feedback Friday this week because I worked my butt off on videos this week and I didn't know that the Let's Play period for Far Cry Primal started on the 16th. So the videos that I did of content for that game, they were good videos, and the people who saw them, really liked them. I got a lot of very positive comments on them, but the traffic sucked. And for those of you who don't know, there's a period of a few days before the reviews come off embargo. This is a really lengthy one. That Let's Players, YouTubers can actually put the game on with certain restrictions. They can stream the game, they can put the game on their channels. And obviously the earliest ones do the best. And I apologize if the audio is a bit strange right now. Momo is climbing all over me and pulled the microphone off my shirt. But it's a bummer that I put so much work into those videos only for no one to watch them. Because it just happened to be in the Let's Play period that I didn't know about because I wasn't included in the first round of review copies. I only found out that the Let's Play period started at that point because I'm reviewing the game for CGM, the magazine, the actual print magazine I write for, and I saw the embargo information on that. And I was like, well, crap. And that's the thing that sucks about YouTube, that, you can do everything right and still have a video tank. Like, I started doing, custom thumbnails because people say, oh, they're important, so I took the extra time to do them. This didn't matter. And I've found that's true about YouTube in general. All the things that people say are really super important, I haven't found that the trimmings are important. What matters is good, consistent content. That's the only advice I got about YouTube that I've found has been 100% accurate, is you have to be consistent. People need to know what your schedule is and where to look for your content, which I find very strange because, I subscribe to channels so I don't have to think about that. It's like, what have they got? I go to their channel and I look. But obviously, my viewing habits are not necessarily the norm, so to speak. The other thing I experienced this week that I hadn't talked about because it's actually going on an Agents of Cosplay episode, and again, I was covering this launch, the Fire Emblem Fates launch for CGM. So that's print, and so you guys know, if I'm assigned something by an outlet that is paying me to do the coverage, then I don't scoop them with my own YouTube channel. I think that's bad form. So I didn't do any Fire Emblem Fates coverage on my YouTube channel because the access I got to the Nintendo representative was done through the magazine, and so they get that content. Just housekeeping, so you guys know how I work this stuff. So if you see some stuff I've done and I don't talk about it on YouTube, that's why. Is that, if I'm being paid to do a job, then, I'm going to do that job, and I'm not going to try to, double dip or line my pocket a little bit more. If it's my own contact, or if I say to them, like, look, can I do the review and then put stuff on my own YouTube channel, and they say, fine, then, then we're off to the races, we're good. But it was kind of a bummer to put all that work into stuff and not get the traffic I was hoping for, not even close. And I was like, what's going on this week? And then I saw it. But Fire Emblem Fates, I'm digressing. I've never played a Fire Emblem game before, and I got 20 minutes on a 3DS on the Birthright version of the game, Chapter 13 of the Birthright version of the game. And I was hooked. I was really drawn in by the tactical turn-based strategy thing, the huge maps, it's not a party you're controlling in those games. It's a small army. And I'm actually thinking of buying a 3DS just to play this game. I was so impressed with it. And I'm not just going to play this game. I'm going to try to also pick up Yokai Watch, which was a game I demoed that I enjoyed, but it wasn't quite pushing me over the edge the way Fire Emblem Fates did. And it was just the depth of the tactics in this game. There were no stylus gimmicks. There were no, oh, blow on the microphone to make things happen, or search around the screen with your stylus. None of those things. It was just good old-fashioned turn-based RPG gameplay. And I like that stuff. And so yeah, I'm actually considering jumping on the 3DS bandwagon very late because of this game. And the thing is, when I was prepping for the piece, prepping for the interview, because I don't go in cold. I prepare. I want to know at least something about the game. But the quality of information about this game that was out there before the event was terrible. It was all about this S relationship head petting localization issue. And at first I was sort of like, geez, they're censoring the game. Why? Those are my it's current year moments. It's 2016. Aren't we all grown-ups? Like, haven't we gotten past this puritanical streak? And of course, the Japanese don't have any problem with this stuff in their market. If you saw the dialogue options I did with Ollie Barter, he explained that the Japanese are just confused. So I guess there were certain things about it that they just decided to play it safe. And, when a developer takes content out, it's not for artistic reasons. It's because they're trying to avoid a backlash. But the funny thing is that now that I played the game, I feel like that scandal did the game a disservice because it's such a tiny part of the experience, and it's not even, a core gameplay mechanic. Like, if they were changing something, like Central, I could understand the sheer amount of, pearl clutching and hair rending that I've been seeing, but it's a mini game. It would be like, how in the real-time RPGs, like say The Witcher 3, imagine if they took a Gwent deck out of The Witcher 3. That's how significant this head petting thing is to the game. And I mean, there are some people that love those side things, and what I understood by talking to fans at this event is that they like their Fire Emblem as it is, thank you very much, and it's the principle, the thing of anything. Like, if they made a Fire Emblem game without the permadeath feature, they'd be upset with that too. Some of them don't even like that there's a casual mode. And I always think, personally, I think choice is better. I think it's good that they have different modes, so someone like me who's never played before can play the first time through casual, and then because I once I played one round, I understood the permadeath. Like, going in, I'm like, why would anybody like permadeath? And actually playing it, it's like, no, you know what? That's the challenge. There's a greater feeling of accomplishment when you can lose a unit, because as somebody explained to me, you can reload the map. If you lose somebody, you can start all over again. But the whole point of permadeath is if you screw up and lose a unit, you either have to choose to sacrifice that unit forever through that playthrough, or start all over. And I think that's an interesting type of challenge, but I do understand that some people just want a certain amount of challenge, but that much challenge. And so I like the fact that there's multiple modes. But the sheer depth of the tactical turn-based RPG gameplay is what people really should be talking about in this game, not a, diluted, character-driven mini-game mode where you can take people back to your quarters and pet their faces, and who cares? Like, I said I've never played one of these games before, but to me, that's not nearly as important. And granted, people play games for different reasons, and maybe for some people that was super important. But for me, I don't know why you'd play the game caring very much about that and not about the core mechanics of those massive mini armies fighting mini armies on these massive maps, and you having to be very strategic. And you have to kind of think 2 or 3 moves ahead. You're not just thinking about what you're doing this round. You're thinking about where the enemy units may move and making sure that nobody gets caught too much out in the open, so they're there with, their ass hanging out. And to me, that was the experience, and it's solid. And retroactively, I'm really disappointed in the approach that sort of all the tiers of coverage have taken towards this game. I mean, Nintendo should have communicated better in terms of sort of this mechanic. But if you understand Nintendo as a company, they're not really the sort of company that dialogues a lot. It's like, here's a game. It's fun. There you go. And in Canada, at least, they go through a marketing company, and they're given limited information about the game. And so, when I asked the Nintendo rep up here about this whole head petting thing, she's like, we don't know anything about that. And, there's nothing a marketing company can do if the client doesn't provide them with information, right? So, but the thing that people weren't explaining to people while all this hoopla about a stylus game was going on is what exactly people should buy about this game at launch. And I'm talking about this today because it launches today. And if people are like, well, what's the red one and what's the purple one? Guys, don't go out and buy both boxes. Okay, you're going to end up paying more money that way. What you want to do is pick the one you want to start with. It seems like Birthright is the default. That's the easiest, meaning it apparently gives out more XP and more gold. It's set to pay out more. And that's the track, I forget the people who are your blood relatives and you're kidnapped and the whole thing. But I remember that your sort of adoptive family are the Norians, and that's the side you play with in Conquest. But Birthright is your birthright. But when you're finished playing through the game that way, and for people who are interested, Conquest is built more for more experienced fans. More experienced players, it pays out less gold, and it less XP as well, so you have to do more to level up. But so you play through the first one, and then you'll get an option to download the other path for a reduced price. So up here, it's, instead of it being $50, it's like $29 or something like that, or $30. And then the third chapter is coming out later because it's intended to be played once you finish at least one of the primary paths. And that is a purchasing decision that people need to know about. And it was so difficult for me to track down this information, pre-attending the event. And that, to me, is a failure of the press. And that is because the press is going for what is going to generate clicks, not what's going to inform the public. And this is unfortunate because there's a big demand for this game, at least in Toronto. People were out, it was a cold weather advisory in Canada, so you can imagine how cold it was because we're used to cold. And it's winter, it's cold, wear a coat. But the place was packed. Like, it was so packed that they had trouble accommodating media demos. So I sort of waited till the end, until everybody was through, and then I took my turn because I wanted fans to get their hands on. But yeah, it was a packed event. There's interest in this game, but there hasn't been information presented except sort of direct-to-consumer trailers and things like that. And that's when I get really frustrated because I think that our job is not to ignore informing people to get clicks. Our job is to find a way to inform people and get clicks. And I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that that is our job. And a lot of people will I think, abdicate the responsibility to inform, because at the end of the day, they're more of a businessman or businesswoman than a fan or an ethical journalist. And so their idea is, this is a business, this is how I make money. My primary ethics are maximizing my paycheck. And more, I really understand that. I really do. I wish I was better at that sort of mentality, because I think that, money's good. Money lets you buy stuff. Money reduces stress. You have less to worry about when you have more money. I don't care what you say. It's a different kind of stress when, like this week, Kanye West is $53 million in debt. So what? He goes on a couple tours. He pays that back. Like, that's an astronomical amount of money to me. But for a guy like him, he's still living large sort of thing. He's still living like a celebrity. So, $53 million is okay. It's a deal. But could you imagine if somebody told you were $53 million in debt personally from a bad business deal? I mean, I'd faint. So, I understand people, and I think that it's a viable, understandable choice if somebody says, I am a business person first, and I am going to do what is going to maximize my revenues. That's a sound business decision. And more services that cover games have to make that call. They have to run themselves like businesses, not information sources. But then there's people like me who are like, I'm not just and I hate even referring to myself as this because of the connotations, because I don't feel, when I say journalist, to me, I think of putting yourself in some, putting something on the line to get these stories. And I think that game analyst is probably a better term for me. But when I'm going out and I'm collecting information through an interview and presenting that interview to the public, that is journalism. So, I do journalism, but I wouldn't consider myself a journalist so much as I am an analyst. But then there's a part of me that's the fan. And I create content that I would want to see. I'm fascinated by the way games are made. And the more I learn about how games are made, the more amazing video games are to me. The effort that goes into them, and the caring and the thought and the research. And it's crazy. It's crazy how much these developers care about creating a quality experience for the fans. And even when they don't succeed in it, it's not for lack of trying, just sometimes you don't. You get too ambitious or something goes wrong. And, but they're trying. They're trying very hard to create a fun experience. And, Fire Emblem Fates is, to me, I think, a shining example of the media missing that, yes, people will click on a story about how content's being yanked out of the Japanese version of the game for the North American market, but does that make a person enjoy a game more? Does that give them some piece of information that either informs their purchase or enhances their experience? No, it really doesn't. Because what can we do about that instead of getting upset? Nothing. So, I would have preferred seeing something that introduces us to the characters. So, do we want to play Birthright? Do we want to play Conquest? Well, I don't necessarily know. I mean, I kind of like the Norians more just because I like Camilla, because the first thing you see of her is boobs, and she's got this cool, tiara thing that even as I'm playing the game, I'm like, that would be fun to make. But I just thought it's she's your sister, and she's like Boobs McGee right there. All right, I like my big boob characters in video games, I'm like, but I want to save that experience. I'm gonna play the other one first, and then go back and play the second one, so the second one's better. But because I have access to these things, I can make an informed purchase. What about people who can't go to a launch? Right? What if you don't live in a major city, or what if you're not in a major city that holds a launch event? Well, if the press is not doing our jobs and getting you guys the information, you can't make that informed choice that I'm able to make. And that frustrates me, because as a fan, I see this and go, well, we're not getting the information we need. And at the end of the day, and I'm being reminded of this more and more. At the end of the day, game publishers do not need us. They can, distribute trailers directly to YouTube and just go through word of mouth and fan communities. They can do their own marketing. PR is something that sort of has to be a give and take, sort of an ongoing handshake deal between the media and the developers of, we want to collectively create the best possible experience for gamers. And that's the thing I think is missing. And this whole Fire Emblem thing brought it into front of mind again. And I talk to people and I see them upset, and I feel very bad that so many gamers who clearly care enough about these games to get upset are spending so much time being upset. Because when you don't have any other news in a game like Fire Emblem Fates, and you hear like something's being taken out, people have a tendency to fixate on that because it's in a vacuum. They're not hearing about all the great features that are in it. And I mean, the Street Pass features alone in Fire Emblem Fates blew me away. It's crazy how much they're allowing people to see by just walking by somebody and your DS is going bleep. Never mind the local online multiplayer features. There's a lot of game in a handheld. And I saw this. It's like, man, this would be so much better to play on the subway, or to play before I go to bed. Because I play like mobile games before I go to bed, because otherwise I can't turn my brain off. I have to focus my brain on something that isn't, shooty, splody, because that wakes me up. The smaller, like, thinking games that are turn-based, that I have time to sort of plan, allow me to wind down at the end of the day. And I was like, this is a far more satisfying experience than my current go-to, which is Pet Rescue Saga and Pyramid Saga, Pyramid Solitaire Saga, or whatever. It's the one with the little, like, weird rat thing in the Female Explorer. But they're games that literally put me to sleep. But I looked at this and go, this might be a good investment in my sanity. This draws me in enough that at the end of the day, when I need to check out from reality and go, stop worrying about all that stuff you couldn't get done today, and my brain's saying to me, I know you're not going to do it on your own. You're just going to chew on this because it's your own conscientiousness getting the better of you. I'm going to give you something that's enough immersion that you forget about that stuff and you focus on one thing instead of the 15,000 things you're talking about during the day or thinking about during the day. This focuses you so you can sleep, because sleep is important. And I think this could be a really, great addition. I'm excited to play it. And I wish I could have done coverage, and I hope that my event coverage for CGM Online gives that sort of sense of how impressed I was by the 20 minutes I had on it, how interested I am. It's great when I can walk in as knowing very little about a game and walk out going, wow, I actually had to pry myself away from that, because if I kept playing, I would have been there for hours until they tore me away. So I have to stop now because I've decided I like it, kind of thing. It is so rare now that I go in knowing nothing, right? That it was kind of cool. And so I guess part of the reason I'm talking about this on Feedback Friday is because I've been talking to a lot of people about games in the games press, and it's an ongoing dialogue sort of thing. And, I wanted to pass that on to you guys because I couldn't do full-blown content. There will be some Fire Emblem cosplay on an upcoming episode of Agents of Cosplay. And I did the the event. It's not a review. It's the event coverage for CGM. But when I am assigned something by an outlet that is paying me, I don't then scoop them on my own YouTube channel. That would be unethical. If someone is providing me access, then they get first access to the content. That's just only right. And again, a really aggressive business person would go, no, I did the work, and I have the right. People can sample both things. I just think it's not right. I think that if somebody provides me with an opportunity, then I have to be loyal to that opportunity and give it the respect it's due. So that's a little insight into what's been going on with me this week. The Gamer's Guide to Feminism stuff is continuing. Not as much trolling as I thought there'd be so far, but I think that the closer we get to the present, the more it's going to become contentious, and I'm going to take my time with not like be leisurely about it or anything like that, but I want to make sure it's accurate. And some people were complaining before about it being every other week. I think I'm going to have a new one for this coming Tuesday, but people were complaining about being every other week instead of every week, and I decided that I want to be able to triple check a few things and make sure the information is as accurate as I can possibly get it. And some of the comments have been really interesting, bringing up tangential stuff, like the fact that a lot of the people involved in the suffrage movement were terribly racist. I touched on that a little bit in one of the first wave videos, but it goes much deeper than that. I mean, ties to the eugenics movement and things like that. But it's one of those things that these were their activities outside of feminism, so it was hard to mush it in. But yeah, when we get into the second wave and we get into the third wave, I think emotions are going to start running higher. And that's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously I'm going into this with a real respect for the daunting challenge of presenting, especially the early years of third wave feminism, because I'll say that because I have my own sort of structure in terms of where we're at with modern day feminism. But we got to get through the interwave period between first and second. We have to get through second wave feminism. We have to get through, post second wave feminism, post Title IX, stuff like that, before we get to the third wave. So it's still a bit of a journey until we get there. But those are still very solid videos. Those are still getting good traffic. So I'm happy about that because they're a lot of work. But thanks for listening and have a good weekend. I'll be back on Monday with Mountain Monday.